searching, job searching can be really overwhelming for people, regardless of the situation that you're in or if you've had to search before. And so, what we're going to try to do today is give you some of the basic tips to get started if you feel like you want a new job. What do you need to start with? And try to keep it as easy and simple as possible and break things out into actionable items kind of as we go today. So, we already had a very lovely introduction, so I will be very quick with this. I've been coaching and training since 2002. My running joke is I have a lot more gray hair. Well, it's coming in here too, but most of it's underneath there. So up until now, it's been easy for me. And the advice that we're going to give you today, though, is advice that we give to all of our clients. And one of the things I wanted to share just while we're on this slide is we will give you a lot of tips and suggestions. And I don't want this to be overwhelming for you. So what I would recommend is if you pick and choose one or two action steps that you will commit to at the end of today that makes the most sense for your particular situation, where you are within this process and this journey for yourself, then remember, you will get a copy of the recording. We're happy to share the slides with you, and I'm putting a link to the slides that you can download right away if you want to. Come back to it and continue on from where you left off. So, job searching, and if it ends up being for you, career transition, it can be really challenging for people. And these are the kinds of things that we hear from our clients. They're overwhelmed in some ways because there's so much new technology. There's AI, there's these scanning systems, like how do I deal with all of this, plus LinkedIn. And the technology is really helpful for people, but understandably, it can feel daunting sometimes too. Some people will say there's so many steps to take. I don't know where to start. I don't know if this is the right time to make a move for me or not. And then other people, understandably, will say, I just don't feel like I have enough time to do this, or I don't know how to use my time wisely. And one of the things we would actually suggest that you think about first is what is your biggest fear, concern, or obstacle to finding a new job? Because if you identify what that is, you can start to work on overcoming it versus just kind of being in procrastination mode and uncertain and looking back and wondering where the time went. It's a really good idea to understand what stands in your way first. Awareness is that first step. So write that down for us. What is the biggest challenge for you, fear or concern? And we'll help you address those as we go today. Other people will tell us like they're just flat out uncertain how to handle their search from a big picture perspective. And understandably too, with the economy and just other challenges, we actually find that with an election year, people get a little bit nervous or more nervous about job seeking. Some people don't know if this is the right time to be looking or if they should wait things out till the end of the year a little bit longer. And then finally, a lot of people don't know, okay, what is the right job? So I know I want something new, but I'm not sure what that looks like. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk first about defining your direction because that's a critical first piece. If you feel like you want something new, to understand and know as much as possible or as narrowly as possible what the right next step would be is going to be your first action item. And we'll talk about that more as we go. The second thing is prepping your materials. We'll give you advice on that. Where and how we want you to research and do some networking, creating a plan for your search. And just by the way, too, we will have time for Q&A at the end, but I'm also happy and would love to see questions come throughout the webinar today. I'm happy to pause and answer things. And I'd also love it if you all would share any resources or suggestions that you have come across that you have found helpful because we can help each other. So feel free to put those in. Don't feel like you need to wait till the end here to put anything in either the chat or the Q&A box because I've got both open. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So our first step, as you've all heard, a more targeted search usually goes better. But here's what I will say is, as you think about a new job for you, it's okay if you're a little bit on a spectrum of focus and clarity. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So in an ideal world, yeah, if you know the certain and specific job titles that you want to pursue and even the type of industry or kind of field you want to get into, that's fantastic and great. It will allow you to be really focused and successful. But if you feel like, I'm kind of open to different ideas and suggestions, it's okay. What we tell our clients is that it's okay if you've got one or two or even like three possible ideas, as long as they're kind of related or adjacent to each other, if you will. Because some clients will tell us, I'd like to make a move and make a change, but I want to make sure I'm casting my net wide enough. And they worry a little bit about being too focused. And what we say is it's okay to have a couple of ideas, maybe that you're pursuing. We don't want you to have any more than three because then you're going to be like too willy-nilly. But you can create different resumes for those directions, as long as, again, those directions are kind of related and similar, if you will. Okay. And we'll keep talking about this concept as we go today. So first of all, because you're here today, we are making the assumption that you're on at some level of not satisfied with your current job, right? So if we could launch our first poll right now, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. And as we're completing this poll, it's okay if you are in any part of this kind of spectrum as well. Just know that in an ideal world, like your job search is going to take as quickly or it'll be as short as possible. But you always want to give yourself a little bit more time for a search than you're typically estimating, just because it usually happens that way. Interview processes take a little while, networking, et cetera, et cetera. So try to be realistic about the length of time that it's going to take for you to find something new. And one of the first steps that you can take as you're working on this poll that we feel, just by the way, is helpful for anyone in any of these categories or buckets in the poll is to create a list. Just grab a piece of paper on your computer, whatever is best, and write down what works for you at your current job, what you like, and what doesn't work for you at your current job. Create a list of these likes and dislikes. And ask yourself, okay, based on these things, what do I want to have next or instead of where I am now? And one of the most helpful things is to start to, when you see these things in front of you in black and white, it seems like a really simple exercise, but it actually makes a huge difference because then you're starting to see themes between what your answers are. Is it mostly, for example, about the work environment? Is it mostly about the clients you work with or the industry that are the problems for you? It'll help you understand, do you need to make more of a course correction or a large transition? And so if we look at our poll here, it looks like the majority of people are kind of in the middle. We've got 47% kind of in the middle, which makes perfect sense. We've got a large number that are about to run out the door, and this is our way of, quick cold turkey. And then that slightly unsatisfied category. So for those of you who are in either the middle or end of the range here, the higher end of the range, definitely start to work on these exercises as soon as possible so you can get the ball rolling, okay? And just know that with your themes that you're defining, we're going to help you in the next couple of slides here start to understand how you know what to do with those themes and those things that you're finding out. And again, as I said, this homework assignment seems very simple and easy, but it can actually be incredibly insightful for you because we're looking for those themes as we go. All right, let's take a look at our next slide. One of the things we always want to tell people is when you're thinking about a new position, a new job, whether it's a large change or a small change, please know that we want you to have the right perspective, that no job is going to be perfect. And what we want you to go for, please, is that the good parts about your new position so far outweigh the bad parts, the things you may not like quite as much, that you barely notice those other things. And what we find is that when people are at choice in terms of where they might be compromising in terms of their next job and their career path, they feel so much better because it's not like you just got sucked into this and you feel stuck. There's always going to be things that we don't like about what we do, like maybe a client we don't like working with quite as much, maybe, office politics, all that other stuff that tends to happen. So just don't put so much pressure on this process, please, that you're like, if I can just find this needle in a haystack, everything is going to be perfect. We're weighing pros and cons here. And what I will tell you is that being at choice about it too. And for example, with my job, I love what I do. There definitely are things that I don't like doing sometimes though, and days that I would rather just, lay around and be independently wealthy. But The things that I don't like as much are much fewer and far between, and the positives so far outweigh the negatives. That's what we're going for. So in terms of defining your direction, let's take a look at this next slide. We will go into a little bit greater depth with this as we progress today. This is basically our ideal career model. It's a model that I developed when I first started coaching a long time ago to help people have a checklist of things that could help them brainstorm the right career path for them and also make sure that they were covering all of their bases. And if you look at this just briefly, we want people, when you're defining your direction, to consider all of these boxes or criteria, if you will. We ideally want people to be in a job that is fulfilling and satisfying for them in some way, shape, or form. That you also get to work on tasks that are interesting to you, or the types of projects that are interesting to you, or the clients that you like to work with, if that's the case in your situation. We want you to make sure that your job plays to your strengths. That's a big one. We want you to look at and play to your past experience and education as appropriate. And sometimes, and I did this when I was thinking about my career path, I had to think way back to when I was an undergraduate. So think about the courses that you enjoyed at American even, and how would you like those to play into those things that you've enjoyed experience and education wise, play into your next step. But we also want you to think about, and these are the ones that people forget a lot, your personality type and how that impacts the role that you should be in, the work environment that you should be in, and the types of people that would be ideal for you to work with. And these two interplay with each other enormously. The right work environment is something that people forget a lot. They pick their job based on, okay, I'm good at this, like it pays me well, compensation is really important too. But if you forget about these two pieces, then you could end up in the wrong fit. So make sure that you're covering all of your bases here when you're defining your direction, okay? And as we think about defining direction, a couple of ways that you could start to also brainstorm ideas, in addition to using the model and saying, for example, what are the tasks I've historically liked to perform? What past experiences have I had that I've really enjoyed, and what were those qualities? What's the best work environment to me or for me, and what are my strengths? The other ways that you can brainstorm ideas is to ask yourself and write down for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to take that long. How do you define success? What does success mean to you professionally? You could also think about an ideal day at work and journal about that. Or some of our clients who are more visual, they will create a vision board. And this can give you a sense of like, what are the ideal things you want to be doing every day? And a third thing that we like to do with our clients up front to help them really get clear on the right work environment, their strengths, but also their values and what would be fulfilling to them for that piece of the model, is to understand what your top 3 to 5 career values are. And what we suggest that people do is they think about a personal peak experience for them. It could be a moment in time, it could be a period of time, and you write about that for a few minutes and focus on what was cool about that experience for you. So for example, if it was a trip out west, let's say, was a peak experience for you, ask yourself what was cool about it. Was it the planning and the logistics, or was it more about like the beauty, the scenery, the creativity if you went to art galleries or whatever it is? It's really interesting too if you like take two people who even might have the same peak experience. When they describe what was cool about it for them, they could have completely different answers that help you identify and understand how they have completely different values even from that same peak experience. So it's worth thinking about these things. And remember, as we said earlier, this doesn't mean that every single value is going to necessarily be honored in your next job. But if you can get as close as possible to all of those in some way, shape, or form, you're going to get closer to something that you would really, really enjoy. And we always have, and then I'll talk about this next slide in just a second here, we always have our clients, just by the way, think about what would be fulfilling for them first. Because what we find is that if they take a little bit more time on that piece of the model and brainstorm ideas based on those things and do research, they will come up with a lot more ideas that they can then narrow down based on practical considerations. So they've got this really nice big list, but then they can start to say, okay, I don't have experience there, so this one's not going to work, but I do have experience over here. And as we're talking about, after we talk about this slide, I'll give you a quick example for this. So with the brainstorming ideas, you can leverage AI and online tools to do a little bit of Googling and think about careers related or in data analysis or construction or whatever it is. So this is where you can do a little bit of research on your own to see what else is out there. And sometimes what we find for our clients is that they don't always have to make a huge change when they want a new job. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they discover that they can make more of a course correction, and actually that fits the bill for them. You can consider industry adjacent roles, vendors to your industry, or consulting to your industry. So what we tell people is, don't be dramatic. Don't assume that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And start all over, even if you are in that 40% that is really, really unhappy. Once you figure out what is not working at your current job, if it's the work environment or something else, that can tell you what kind of shift you need to make. And just by the way, a lot of our clients will make more of a course correction, and that's actually better for them. We had one client, for example, come to us, and she was a consultant at one of the big four consulting firms. And she literally said to us, I'm so unhappy. Sometimes I feel like I need to go be a chef. And when it came down to it, she realized that a lot of the issues for her were really more about the work environment and a difficult boss, and a little bit about the types of clients that she had. So she decided she wanted to be more so of an internal consultant. And she looked at organizations and companies in Chicago where she lived at the time and went that route instead. So it was similar, but different enough to make her happy. As part of defining your direction, by the way, assessments can be very helpful. But if any of you have ever taken an assessment and maybe it spit out to you that you were supposed to be a circus clown or something else like a funeral director or something, no offense to those at all, but something that you weren't like interested in, you need to keep in mind that assessments are really incredibly helpful in that they're accurate and they give you a lot of good information in a short period of time. However, with assessments, they're only testing you for one piece of our career model, one piece of the puzzle. So know that assessments can be helpful. Like we use the Strengths Finder with our clients, and there's a lot of different great ones out there. We recommend leveraging them because it can help you get some good information and help you brainstorm ideas related to either your strengths, or if it's like Myers-Briggs, that would be your personality type. But remember too that an assessment is not the magic wand that's going to just spit out the right answer for you per se, because there are those other criteria that you need to be considering as well. And part of why we like assessments is listed on this slide too, is not only can they help you like determine or consider ideas for your direction, but they can also help you with strengths or personality strengths to update your resume and your LinkedIn profile. So keep that in mind as well. So bottom line with your direction, consider each piece of the model here, please, and make sure you dig into each one. Remember how I said a moment ago, and then we'll keep going. Fulfillment can give you the most ideas that help you get closer to something that you'd really enjoy. And then you can get ideas from your interests, strengths, experience, and education, but these are also going to help you narrow down your ideas based on practical considerations. So for example, we had a client once who one of her values was health and wellness, and we brainstormed a lot of different ideas with her. And one of the ideas on her list was being a dietitian. But when she looked into that as an option for her, she realized A, she would have to go back to school for that, and she really wasn't interested in doing that. B, it was one-on-one work that seemed like very rewarding, but she had this sense for herself that she wanted to impact larger groups of people, and she was a little bit more introverted, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to work one-on-one with people all the time. And honestly, too, the compensation was not going to be where she was used to because she was in sales. She actually was in sales for an office furniture company. So what we came up with instead for her that fit more of the pieces of the model was being in sales for consulting firms or a consulting firm that helped organizations with develop health and wellness programs so they could help their employees be more healthy and also save on insurance costs. And that really fit the bill for her. So I just wanted to share like that one example to help you think outside the box, but also know too that there's so many jobs out there that we don't even know exist, that it is worth like doing this research and this homework. Okay, so step number 2 is it's really important to get your house in order in terms of your materials, if you will. And all of your materials are listed on this next slide here. So first of all, what we bring up brand with everyone that we work with, because one of the things that we find, and I know you all have heard this before, like branding, it gets kind of old. But what we find is that people may be a little bit better at, or with their resume and their LinkedIn, for example, they may have done a good job of selling themselves. Maybe their bullet points are really results oriented. They've got a lot of successes on there, whatever it is. But the branding piece, a lot of people still tend to fall short. And so this is where we want to focus a little bit more today. When you're thinking about your brand, you want to think about your unique selling points. What is the combination for you of your unique like background, experience, your values, your education, your personality type and strengths that makes you a great candidate for specific jobs? One quick example, one of our clients was an interior architect, and actually he still is. But when he was looking for a new position, one of the unique things about him was his family owned a construction firm. And as a kid, teenager, throughout college, he would work there. And so he had a really great working knowledge of construction principles, not just design. And that made him a really unique candidate, kind of stand out from the crowd. So those are the types of things that we want you to be thinking about when you're considering your brand. And we'll talk more about how to articulate this on your resume in just a few minutes. So with your brand, you want to make sure that your resume and your LinkedIn articulate that effectively at the top of your resume in your about section, especially, okay? And then as part of this, it is a really good idea to just Google yourself to make sure everything online is cleaned up, because employers will look. They will look you up on LinkedIn first, understandably, but then they might search a little bit deeper depending on the employee or the employer. So you just want to make sure that everything is clean there, in addition to LinkedIn resume is branded. And if you have a portfolio for any reason, like you're a graphic designer, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that you can do here to leverage AI also, so you can leverage AI for career direction and brainstorming, but you can also leverage AI to brainstorm and identify what some of your soft or hard skills might be for the current role that you're in. So what are some common skills or strengths for the job that you're in, but also for the jobs that you're looking for, so that you can understand what you need to articulate in all of your materials in order to sell yourself effectively. So you can ask it like common strengths for current role, common strengths for the role that you're looking at as well, to again get ideas. So these are the cool ways that you can leverage ChatGPT, AI, etc. And as part of your branding, one thing that people tend to forget too, and I get it because we're always focused on our resume and LinkedIn, and those are really important. But your elevator speech or pitch, the thing that you say to people to introduce yourself, whether it's at a live networking event, whether it's you're talking with someone one-on-one in an informational interview, you need to be confident and comfortable, like speaking about who you are. So my elevator pitch is I'm a certified career coach, and we help people find jobs that want to make them jump out of bed in the morning to go to work. It's catchy, it's memorable, like people, a lot of people can kind of relate to what we're talking about. We'll give you some examples here on the next slide. Most of you probably know about what an elevator pitch is, but work on it, because we don't want you to forget this important piece, because you can use it during an interview, but also when you're talking with people and networking, which we want you to do a lot of, you need to be ready and not be like, oh crap, I forgot about that part, and I, need to be prepared. So these are the things that you want to ensure you have, or when you're getting started with your elevator pitch. Who are you talking to, and how can they help you so that you're saying the right thing and asking the right questions? What are the things that you accomplish for people and make happen? What are the results? An opening sentence or something along the way that is memorable or grabs attention is great, but don't feel like you have to be a comedian either. Sometimes people put too much pressure on that. And two last things, make sure you practice it in front of the bathroom mirror. Yes, I've done that before. It helps your confidence though, and make sure it sounds right. And by the way, with everything that we're talking about today, including your elevator pitch, you can leverage AI here as a tool to help you come up with language for this. What we want to let you know, though, is that we suggest using AI as a tool to help you improve, adjust content on your resume, LinkedIn, or your pitch. Don't just use exactly what it spits out to you, because that's what other people might do too. And we have been told by employers and recruiters that they can tell when someone has just simply AI'd their resume and they don't like it. It needs to be in your voice and unique to you. So use it for adjustments, not to start from scratch, is usually what our recommendation is. So here are two examples, and I'm not going to read these because reminder, you'll get the recording and you can download the slides. The link is in the chat box if you'd like those. But if you look here, both of these kind of speak to a common problem that I think most people would understand, like storytelling for marketing purposes, the environmental compliance minefield, if you will. And obviously, remember, when you're having a conversation with someone, you're going to be able to say more than just what is in your elevator pitch. So don't try to feel like, oh, I have to cram everything in there. Remember, the conversation will continue, but these are good like starting points to an introduction for yourself. And it's almost like you want to ask yourself, what would people say about me if I left the room in a good way at my office? Like, what am I known for and what am I really good at? Okay. Let's move to revising and updating your resume and LinkedIn. And please, as we said earlier, if there are any tips that you want to share, resources, or any questions, feel free to put them in either the Q&A or chat box. Really important to brand everything, as we've already said, and I've got an example of what I mean by that on the next slide. And there are some tips here on resume, but also LinkedIn. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So you want to make sure on your resume and LinkedIn profile that you've got keywords on there that a prospective employer would be looking for and wanting to know that you have as skills or strengths. So search engine optimizing your resume and your LinkedIn profile is an important thing. It will help people find you on LinkedIn, and it will also help your resume get past those scanners, okay? At the bottom here, mentioning those marketable results each time, make sure as much as possible in your bullet points with your experience section, you put numbers in there if possible, statistics, quantifiable results if you can. If you can't quantify some of your results, that's okay. You can simply say, conducted or completed this, event or whatever it was, resulting in like increased marketability and improved community relations for the organization. So even if you don't have numbers, your bullet points can still be results oriented. And then finally, with your resume, do please have a summary at the top. And here's what we mean by branding. And I'll point to each of these kind of pieces here. So this is the top of an example resume that we share with our clients. So you've got your contact information at the top, which is important. But this person, the reason why this is branded is we know exactly who this person is, marketing and communication strategist. And there's a nice little tagline here so that we understand what this person does within marketing. He's not talking about the creative process, notice. Now, that doesn't mean he's not creative, but he's more of like an operations guy, okay? And it just happens to be a guy, that's why I'm saying that. So this is how you brand yourself, by having something like this so they know right away who you are, the type of job that you're looking for, and some of the nuggets that you bring to the table. And then your summary at the top is this piece right here that, again, sells you, brands you, articulates why they should continue reading. It's almost like why you should hire me. You want to put some of your keywords in there, but you also want to put some of your keywords inside of a skills section that would be underneath this summary section as well. Now let's talk about your LinkedIn for a couple of minutes too. So with LinkedIn, you have to have a photo. It's a really good idea to have a branded banner. Most people do these days. It's kind of moving in that direction. So we'll show you what we mean by that, but that can be really helpful to help sell you effectively. Remember that when you're writing your LinkedIn profile, in your about section, you can have third person in there, and that's fine, similar to your summary of your resume, and it could be kind of excerpted from that. But we also like it when people put at least a few sentences in there that are first person. LinkedIn is a little bit more informal. It's supposed to speak to the reader a little bit more. And then on the bottom left, and I see we've got a question, so I'll answer that while we're here. The measurable results you want to make sure is there too. So first question, thank you so much for asking. If you're looking to get new or different experience, what if you don't want to limit yourself to past experience and put yourself in a box, especially for transitioning careers? This is a great question. So let me go back here and let me just share something because I think it'll help a little bit. So when you're trying to make a shift, which understandably we get if a lot of you are on the call today, or at least considering that, we prefer for your resume, and this kind of overlays with your LinkedIn a little bit as well too, that you use what we call a hybrid version. It's a blend of a chronological resume and a functional resume. And so what you can do is you can still list your experience in chronological order on your resume. But for example, with your summary, if you take a look at this slide here, we have done bulleted summaries for clients before instead of having a paragraph like this. So number one at the top here, you would want to put the job title for the types of jobs that you're going for, as long as it's ethically honest, not saying that like you were a dentist or, you know, whatever it is. If this person was going for like, let's say something that's in project management within a different organization, he has probably, and I know has managed projects before. So he could use like the new job title there. But in your summary and in your experience section, you can bullet out based on transferable skills. So this person could change his summary to say project management and then have the relevant like sentence there, or whatever those relevant transferable skills would be. So it's almost like it's a hybrid version of the resume inside of each of your sections. So you're pointing them to why you're qualified versus so focused on this is their past experience. And you can do the same thing within your LinkedIn profile as well. Let me know if that helps you as a start, kind of answer that question. You want to start telling the story of where you want to go. And this is also where, for example, when you're working on getting LinkedIn recommendations, you can have them speak to the direction you want to head in those transferable skills. We like for people to go ahead and use some of their recommendations or excerpts of those inside of their experience section on LinkedIn so that they don't get buried at the bottom. And also when you're trying to market yourself in a new direction, this is where you want to make sure that you've got the right keywords for that new direction too. Remember, you want to check your settings on LinkedIn to let people know you're open to new opportunities. And this again is where you could leverage AI to update your LinkedIn profile a little bit too. This is a branded banner, as we've been talking about. This person's got a dog's nose because she's in veterinary pharmaceutical sales, and their animals, she tells me, they're all over the place when they're on their Zoom calls. So it's completely appropriate for them. But you can also create a branded banner that's like this or something similar. We do this for clients all the time, that positions you for the next direction you want to head as well. And we really do want you to have something like this. Feel free to reach out if you feel like you need help with it. With LinkedIn, there's a lot of things that we want you to be doing with LinkedIn, but let's start out with, as we've said already, like let's get your profile up to speed. And we'll go ahead and launch our next poll here. When you are wanting to start this networking process after your materials are up to date, if you are wanting to connect with a second or third connection on LinkedIn, always ask the person in between you, please, to make the introduction. Don't jump around and go to that person. It it will go a lot better and they're more likely to get back with you if you ask for that introduction. And I think most people know this, and I'm hoping it will be reflected in the numbers. It looks like it is so far, which is great, that people know now to include a note inside of the LinkedIn connection when you're wanting to connect with somebody. Be careful when you're on your cell phone and the LinkedIn app, because sometimes that connection request goes across faster before you're able to put a note in there. But it is really important to include that note. And it looks like with our poll responses so far, which I'm really glad about. A few years ago when we were doing this, most people were not. It looks like we've got some good numbers here. So far, 83% are including one and 17% are not, which that's great. So for those 17% that are not, just go ahead and remember to do this each time. Now, if it's your best friend, okay, you can get away without it. So with LinkedIn, and this will be our final kind of item on LinkedIn, and then we'll move to our next few things and get to our Q&A as well. With LinkedIn and networking in general, a couple of things that we want to just kind of point out and like final thoughts is make networking a part of your weekly job searching schedule. Make sure that you're checking LinkedIn and checking those messages, not just weekly if you're in really active job search mode, but like every day or every other day, because it's time sensitive, really important there. And make sure too that you're making new connections, joining LinkedIn groups, you're writing recommendations for other people. And the way to stay in front of people on LinkedIn is to make sure that you like post something in your activity feed. This doesn't have to be all the time. You don't have to go crazy with it. But if you post something like once a week, that can help your job search because you're staying in front of people a little bit more, just FYI. One of the LinkedIn groups that we definitely want you to join is your Alumni Association group. So with American University, these are warm leads and people are going to be more likely to connect with you, get back with you, and help you out in your job search. And we don't get paid to say this. We tell this to all of our clients. So make sure that you check that LinkedIn group out first. And we've got another question here. I'll go ahead and answer that. And then let me move to our next slide here. Oh, just wanted to say really quickly, we've got a really great LinkedIn guide. Email us if you're interested in learning how to get in front of hiring managers and leveraging LinkedIn more. So take a look at this next slide with some other suggestions we would have for networking. And this next question is great. I've heard that LinkedIn has limited the number of personalized connection requests to 5 a month for free accounts. They have. So I will tell you, and LinkedIn doesn't pay me to say this either, that LinkedIn Premium, when you are searching for a new job, it is definitely worth it. Sign up for the free account first, and you get it for free. I believe it's for about a month. And then after that, I don't remember honestly what the price is now. It's maybe like $20 or something like that. But Premium makes a difference because there's a lot more features they've added to LinkedIn to help you with your search, including matching you up with the job description of a job that you're applying to, being able to message more people. And they just give a lot more benefits and perks to Premium. Someone did tell me once too that if you wait to thank you for it's $40 a month. Ooh, they did go up. Okay, inflation there. But if you wait to sign up for that subsequent month, they'll send you a coupon code and there'll be a discount. So with networking, it's really important to connect with as many people as possible and let as many people as possible know and talk with them about what you're looking for and that you are looking. Because even though there are there's a lot more technology out there, jobs are still secured through networking. The percentages still remain really high. You'll see them on the slide here. So LinkedIn industry specific groups are fair game, things for you to join, especially if you're looking at getting into a new industry. You could identify people that are more active there and try to connect with them. And you can also use websites like Eventbrite and Ask ChatGPT for networking events in your area, as well as any resources that American provides to you. I would leverage those as much as humanly possible because they can be incredibly helpful for your search too. Another question that came through, and I'm going to hop to the next slide so others can read, When applying for a job, I've gone ahead and tried to find the hiring manager of the role on LinkedIn. Great. I'm glad that you did that. Send them a message of gratitude, letting them know I applied and thanking them for their consideration. Do I advise against this? No, I do not. This is fantastic. This is what we want people to do. Now, please know that a lot of the time they're not going to respond to you, and please don't be offended by that. And don't take it as, something bad per se. Like networking is like, it's kind of like sales. And if you get a 10 or 20% return rate and responses on your reach outs, you're doing well. That's good. What if the person that you reached out to, even if they didn't respond to you, you got in front of them though, and they may have said, oh, I need to make a note, or let me go find her resume. So please know that we encourage people to reach out to recruiters, to networking connections, but hiring managers. But please know the one time, obviously, that you don't want to do it is if they say not to do so. If they say, please do not connect or reach out, follow their instructions always. Outside of that, to me, I think it's a good idea. Thank you for that question. It's so good. So with their networking, a couple of the things that you want to do is make sure that you're researching the direction that you want to head and kind of that market, so that you know where the right people are hanging out, know what industry associations to join, etc. Join a couple of LinkedIn groups, like we said. Ask them for advice on your job search. Remember, you're never asking a connection to get you a job. But you want to ask for advice, and that's totally reasonable to do so. And then you can also look on LinkedIn and outside of that for reputable recruiters that specialize in your industry, especially maybe smaller shops in your area that don't just work with C-suite people, who might help you with placement, recruiting, etc. And as part of this networking thing, informational meetings or interviews, we feel, are incredibly helpful for people. As you all probably know, and if we could launch our last poll here, that would be great. Perfect timing. Thank you. It's a one-on-one conversation with someone who either works in an industry that you'd like to get into, a role, or an organization. So those are your three criteria, okay? You're looking for people that are fit one of those slots, if you will, okay? And what you want to do with these people is ask them for advice about your search. Ask them if they've ever worked with a recruiter before that they liked. Are there buzzwords or keywords in their industry that you need to know about, and make sure that you're mentioning it in an interview or on your resume, etc. So definitely conduct as many of these quick coffee chats. If it's in person, take them to lunch, pay for their coffee, or it could be virtual, and these are completely reasonable to do. People do them all the time, and just asking them for advice, okay? So it looks like with our poll, which I'm thrilled about, we've got a higher number of people who have conducted a virtual informational interview. That's great. For those 43% who have not, please know that this is a really good idea. It's fair game for your search, and it's a great way to get advice from the horse's mouth, so to speak, people that work in the industry. And when you are working on or starting to work on these informational interviews and or networking, you can also get ideas from other people's LinkedIn profiles who are in the jobs that you want to be in, to get ideas about buzzwords. You can learn about the company and what's new there before you go on an interview. And also you can review the job descriptions for jobs that you're interested in, so you can see what those themes are. And our last slide for today, so we make sure we've got enough time for Q&A, is make sure that you've got a plan for job searching, a schedule laid out even in like Excel. How am I going to do like my job search or conduct it? How many hours can I spend? These are the types of things that we'd like you to include in your plan. Make sure you've got your goal identified, or your 2 or 3 kind of target jobs. Create a schedule, like we said, what you're going to do every day or 2 or 3 days a week. Stay really organized. Track your networking in an Excel spreadsheet so that you don't lose track of who said what. And make sure you update your voicemail so it sounds professional and upbeat and not the robot voice. Put your LinkedIn profile in a branded email signature line. And by the way, too, if you're looking to make a change or a shift, take a class on LinkedIn Learning to help add that, or another class or another website like Coursera.org to help beef up your strengths experience, in that area. We will post this as we're getting to Q&A here. You can use the QR code here in just a second to get a copy of our slides. If you would go ahead and put in any comments or questions that you have, we'll go ahead and get to our Q&A time. But we would love it too, and would love to see people share what their action steps are as well. Helps with accountability. It could be, I need to define my goals. Do I need to stay in my industry or go try something else? It could be I need to research my market a little bit more and those people that I want to connect with, or conducting these informational interviews or meetings. Lots of good things that you could do here. So as we're waiting on any questions or comments to come through, oh, well, there's a question right now. And please know there will be a few announcements as we progress here. Okay, so great question. How long does the average job search take in the current economy? It's definitely taking a little bit longer. People are finding the job market is tough. I do think that it will get a little bit better, as I said, with our business having been in business for so long. Election years just tend to be weird. And I feel like the economy just kind of shrinks a little bit and afterwards it gets better. I would give yourself, and I'm going to say this statistic because you can find it online. Normally what they say is for every $10,000 that you're asking for in salary, it takes a month of searching. Now, I hate saying that stat because it's depressing and scary for people. My estimation is usually around like half of that, give or take. In this economy, you may want to add like an extra month to be safe. But I will tell you this, that we had a client we worked with months ago. It was like a little bit later in the year last year. She kind of saw the writing on the wall with possibly getting laid off. She activated her network right away. And because she did that, she was able to get a new position within about 4 months. And she was choosing from multiple different offers, actually, because she was doing kind of everything right. So please know that even if the economy or the job market is not as good, if you are doing what you are supposed to do, your results will be better than the average and the norm. Just try to be patient with it. Thanks for asking that question. It is a tough one because it depends on, whether you're making a shift. People that are making a transition, it usually obviously does take a little bit longer because they need to do more networking, get their foot in the door. All right, so Liz, do you want to say anything or make any announcements or put anything in the chat to share with everybody as we're waiting for more questions before we go?
Thank you so much, Hallie, first of all, for being with us today. We will put a couple things in the chat, and one is just a reminder of the resources that you all have as alumni. And we wanted to flag one resource that you all may be familiar with that is linked on this page called Alumni Fire, which is similar to LinkedIn, but it's exclusively for alumni of American University. And the tips that Hallie shared with you today about how to engage on LinkedIn are similar to how you would engage on Alumni Fire, but we have found that our students get really nice responses from alumni because they're there specifically because they want to support you.
Awesome. I would leverage that first, hands down, because they are more willing to get back with you. It's that warm lead and that connection. And this is also where, for example, as you're working within that system, you can also choose the people that it makes the most sense for you to connect with on LinkedIn. And then you can launch things from there as well. So definitely leverage both and start with Alumni Fire first, because that's where you're going to find some really good leads and some help with that. That's awesome. Very good. Any other questions or comments or resources that anyone's used and found to be helpful? I know that LinkedIn Premium $40 is, like I said, more than I thought, but I promise you it's worth it. And you can always just turn it off when your search is done. They've really enhanced what they provide to people who do have premium in terms of their search. And you know, you could even try it for a month and then turn it off and, you know, back on and off, however you want to do it. But I definitely recommend at least trying it for that first month. Make sure you check out in the chat box the resource, Alumni Fire. And is this something that, do they like log in and register for Alumni Fire and like create a password, or?
It's actually connected to their LinkedIn account, so they don't even need a new login. Mhm.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, groovy. Okay, great. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'm good to go.
Thank you so much, Hallie, for being with us today. And thank you to our alums for joining us. We are always delighted to have you with us, and we hope to see you back in December, if not at another event before then. Thank you all.
Thanks. Have a great day.